Good to have you here. We go to the Williams Tractor Hotline now, and we will check in with Ryan McGee from ESPN. We'll get some football thoughts. We'll also talk about NASCAR as they get going again at Darlington on Sunday. Ryan, how are you?
I'm good. It's Friday afternoon, so I'm a high school principal now at this house. So the bell's about to ring, and we'll be done for the week. So.
Is it almost over? I think with our kids, it's over this week. Is there another week, or how's it working there?
We got I'm in Charlotte, and we got about 2 more weeks after this. So
Okay.
and I know in some states, all my friends at the ESPN headquarters up in Connecticut, they finished school early. Like they closed it down a couple of weeks ago. They're all going crazy because they needed those hours of their kids doing schoolwork so they could get their own work done. And now now the kids are on summer break, and all my bosses are still trying to get their work done. It's been very enjoyable for me.
So we can all agree that it's not the teacher's fault, correct? I mean, the teachers aren't crazy. It's really the kids.
Yeah, no, it's totally the kids. But the actual teachers, they're really good at their job. Those of us who have had to be teachers, that I think if we didn't appreciate teachers before, which I did, my mom was one. But if we didn't appreciate teachers before, I bet you do now.
No question about it. Okay, do you get to cover how does this Darlington, are they letting the media go to the event, or how's this working from that standpoint on Sunday?
Well, it's funny you say that because I literally was just on a call about this, and so there's going to be a media pool of 4 sports writers. The Associated Press, their broadcast partners, Fox and NBC, and then one other person, and I am not in that group. And that's cool with me. I'm good. I can cover that race from home. But there won't be any interviews in the drivers. Where they're going to be, which is in the old Darlington press box in one corner of the racetrack. They really can't see a whole lot from there anyway. I'm glad they're there, and I'm a little jealous just that I would like to see and get an idea for what it feels like in person. But I think once the race starts, it's just going to be a race. It's just everything that they're having to do before the race and then after the race is just going to be so foreign. But I know Marty Smith will be there for TV, but I also know he's basically going to be across the street. So there's there's no access inside unless you are one of the. It's just less than 900 people are going to be in there working, and typically, if it's just talking about the garage, it's about 3 times that many people. So it's certainly going to be different.
How for us, I mean, we're sitting here 10 miles from the University of Arkansas campus. For you cover things nationally. How weird is it, and how hard is it for you guys to do your job with literally nothing to talk about? You've got a show on the weekends that you guys do. You do a great job with it, but I mean, you're having to create all of this content every single week.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because if I'm being honest with you, which I always am, by the way, but if I'm being honest with you, I was working on this huge Rex Chapman story that was going to run around the conference basketball tournaments. And so I was in Lexington, Kentucky, and hung out with Rex for a couple of days, and it was for E60 and ESPN.com. It's this big all-consuming project. And that got pushed a little bit because of all the news breaking with the league shutdowns and the quarantine and all that. And so I worked on that Rex Chapman thing the first couple of weeks of quarantine. And then when that piece aired and the piece was posted on ESPN.com, I thought I was going to start having to try to find things to do, clean out the garage and organize my office. I've not done any of that because, honestly, it's been pretty nonstop. And I think the news has had a lot to do with that. There just haven't been any actual sporting events. But the last week, Marty and I were talking about this morning, this is as busy as I can ever remember being, no matter whether there's events or not. Because, yesterday alone, I had a 4,000-word story go up on ESPN.com about all of the rules and regulations and the hurdles that NASCAR had to jump through to make this weekend happen. And then while we were finishing that story, Ryan Newman had a press conference and addressed the media for the first time since he should have died at Daytona in February, because he's going to be back on the racetrack this weekend. And then during the Ryan Newman press conference, I got a tip that NASCAR was about to announce its schedule for, all the way through the end of June. And so yesterday was bonkers. And my wife was laughing this morning. She goes, to everything that slowed down so much, I haven't slowed down at all. So that's a long way of saying there's been plenty to write about and plenty to talk about, and honestly, a lot. I'm more surprised about that than anyone else.
We're talking with Ryan McGee from ESPN here on Ruscin Zach. Yeah, that is you alluded to a storyline that may get lost a little bit with all the everything else, with it being in with no fans and all the other stuff, 900 people there, and the track is that Ryan Newman is racing Sunday, and you're exactly right. When I was watching this as it happened with my wife, and the way, and it's not Fox's fault, but the way they were talking, it had that bad feel, and then there was not a lot of information early on. We did think the worst had happened, honestly.
Yeah, so did I, and I was there. I mean, I was the entirety of the ESPN coverage of the Daytona 500, for .com and TV and everything else, and we don't televise the races anymore, and so really my job the last few years has been talk to the winner of the race in Victory Lane for SportsCenter, and then go write a column about the race for ESPN.com. And instead I was standing outside the hospital. And I was preparing myself to tell the world at 11 o'clock on SportsCenter that Ryan Newman was dead, and that nothing had happened to convince me that I was going to have to say otherwise until just prior to 11 o'clock. Roush Fenway Racing issued the statement that he was, awake and alert and all that. And so, I've been going to Daytona. That was my 25th Daytona 500. And I've seen some bad stuff, and in the late 90s, man, it felt like somebody was dying at the racetrack every other weekend, no matter what racing series you were covering. And now we're a little spoiled. No one has died in a national NASCAR event across the top three series since Dale Earnhardt on February 18th, 2001. And I thought this was going to be the first one since then. And that was not the case. And now Ryan Newman will be in a race car competing this weekend at Darlington, and it's one of the most incredible stories I've ever seen. And it's also a testament. He kept using the word miracle, but he's also a Purdue engineering graduate, so he also was very detailed about the fact that the car held up. His brand new helmet that he was trying out, that was a huge part of why he's alive. So the seat he was in, all that stuff. So it's a miracle, but it's also the fact that he survived that crash was the end result of tireless work by a lot of people in a lot of different avenues in the motorsports world.
Brian, I want to ask you, and I don't want to take too quick a left turn here, but I want to ask you about a college football question.
Sure.
You and I have texted back and forth about this. A couple weeks ago, the NCAA comes out and says they're going to at least examine the possibility of players being able to use their name, image, and likeness for profit. And old curmudgeons like myself jumped up and said, it's the end of college football as we know it, and the big boys are going to get better. But you were one of the voices that popped up and said, no, that may not necessarily be the case, saying that some of the smaller schools may benefit from this as well. Yeah,
and honestly, I think Eli Drinkwitz would be a great person to ask about this. The guy that I interviewed at Appalachian State, who's now, suddenly he's in a Power 5 job, and I think that I'd be curious to talk to the guys that have their roots in the non-Power 5, the Gang of Five, like I like to call it, and who are in the Power 5 now, which is, my feeling and what I said to you was, if, there's no question. I mean, listen, we just did the CFB 150 stuff, and what do we learn in that? The Alabamas and the Ohio States and the Southern Cals and the Texases of the world, they were really good at football 125 years ago, and they're really good at football now. That's not going to change, no matter what the rules are. But and they'll always hold an advantage when it comes to trying to recruit a Tua. There's going to be provide things others can't. But if you are a 3-star quarterback who is thinking about going and being the 3rd string or 4th string quarterback at Alabama, and I'm Boise State, and I can come to you and I can say, I guarantee you, your face is going to be on billboards all over the state, and you are going to be a much higher profile athlete around here, which is this is going to be local money. I can guarantee you that this car dealership this and so this and so that, and all this within the rules of whatever the recruiting rules are about this. But I can go somewhere and be a much bigger deal on the next step down than rolling the dice of being the guy who was the man in high school, but now I have to sit on the bench behind Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama for 3 years. I think if the little guys are willing to be creative, and we've already seen some schools get very aggressive with, we paired with this marketing agency, and that's not coming from Alabama and Ohio State. That's coming from kind of mid-tier schools. So, I think if it's played right, then, this might help you recruit a couple guys that maybe you wouldn't get before.
And one of the things along those lines we talked about, like a station like this and a place like this, is, Tom Brady does a weekly radio interview. He did it in Boston. I assume he'll do it in Tampa, and that's a sponsored deal. Why can't the starting quarterback at Arkansas or over in Jonesboro, Arkansas State, get the same deal?
Yeah, no. When I was a student in college, which was a really long time ago, Johnny Majors was the head coach at the University of Tennessee. He didn't make a lot of money salary-wise. Where he made his money was he made a little money from, when I was a student, I worked on the Johnny Majors show, the television program. He got paid more money to have his name on that program than he did to be the head coach of Tennessee. Now, granted, that wouldn't be the case now because coaches are making too much money. But you're exactly right. I mean, there are a lot of really creative minds right now that are figuring out how to come up with ways to create revenue streams. And, I know that the rules are still fluid, and the promise has to be you can't use this as a recruiting advantage or whatever. I mean, we all know that's not how it's going to be. And so there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than I am in the sports marketing world that are going to figure out a way to turn this into an advantage. And the question is, who's going to be creative down on the second tier? And, of course, what we all know is, just like a coach, just like Eli Drinkwitz I'm talking about, if you prove that you're really, really good at recruiting guys to, Boise, BYU, Arkansas State, whatever, then, you'll have a job in the Power Five probably the next year.
Yeah. Ryan, we're out of time. We appreciate it so much. Thanks.
Hey, anytime, guys.
Ryan McGee, ESPN, with us here on Ruscin and Zach. They're racing at Darlington on Sunday. And college football still up in the air. Back in a moment, Ruscin and Zach.